Hello and welcome to Debate 4-on-1, and right here on the program we seek to put on the table the current affairs issues or whatever matters that are the talk of town and need to be dissected on in terms of, getting one point of view from one team or one side of the coin and the other one. And today on the table we are putting the issue of media self-regulation, and the question we are having today is media self-regulation in Rwanda under any threat in particular? And with me in the studio today is none other than Ladislas Ndakimana, and of course we also have Edmund Kagire, who is the Secretary General of the Rwanda Association of Journalists, and the one and only the Prince of self-regulation.
Prince of Peace.
The Prince of Peace himself, he declares that. Now, gentlemen, welcome to Debate 4-on-1. We want to talk about this matter that most people are now having too much speculation about when it comes to whether we're having a functioning self-regulatory media or not. And I'm going to start with the practicing journalist who's here with us today. Edmund Kagire, you also are a Secretary General of the Rwanda Association of Journalists. Do you believe that this thing that we call self-regulation is really working?
Thank you, Eugene. I will speak as a journalist and then as the Secretary General of Rwanda Association of Journalists. Yes, media self-regulation is a fact. It is working. It is present in Rwanda. It's a road that we decided to take. It's a road that was supported and invested in by the government. I would say we are new in this whole initiative of media self-regulation. We're not even 3 years down the road. I believe it is present, it works, and as a journalist, yes, we do feel that right now we have a body that really represents our interests. Yes, we have the laws in place. The government managed to put in place the laws that are needed to support the process of self-regulation. And certainly, yes, we have.
So it is working.
It's working.
So what is the buzz? What is the fuss? What's the issue? Because Prince, there are people who are saying that your institution, the institution that you are part of, the commission, the Rwanda Media Commission, which is in charge of the media self-regulation, is now under threat from the hands of people like Ladislas. What's the fuss? They're saying that you are now not able to probably function the way you probably would want to be functioning, that you are under threat in terms of government's hand in your operations.
You know, the term being under threat to me is, it's grave. It's something that's agreeing or disagreeing, but I have to disagree with it first. There might be issues like any journey you start, you will encounter some issues or obstacles. But calling it a threat, under threat, that means it needs rescue, and then it's a problem. The issue is we are now 1.5 years old, if I may say that.
Yes, yes.
And Rwanda Media Commission, as the implementer of self-regulation, we need to understand that from statutory regulation to self-regulation, these issues are not surprising me. That first, the trust has to be built, because government does not release media just freely. It has also to watch. Remember, media is a power, and an uncontrolled power can be dangerous sometimes.
So you're agreeing to the line of thought that the government hand still needs to be there?
No, the government hand does not need to be there, but government is our partner. And as a partner, and by the way, let me use the state and not the government, because the state to me lasts more than the government, and that means Rwanda Media Commission works on the territory of Rwanda. So there is no surprise if at times people think, oh, but we are still seeing the hand of the government. And that's good. It brings a democratic debate to see whether the laws, are agreeing with the practice on the ground.
So I'll hold you on that part. we're still seeing the hand of government. This is a statement that you make based on what some people from other quarters might be saying. I'll be bringing in Ladislas in this.
People might say...
But the issue here is, I want to listen from Edmund. Do you need the hand of government in any way when it comes to media self-regulation? Eugene,
to be honest, I would say if anyone would expect that the self-regulation means that the media operates 100% free from government interference or influence, that person would be lying to themselves. Because certainly any institution, any independent institution in this country cannot work separate from the desires and the needs of the government and its policies. But what we are saying is there's that balance that we need to strike. At what extent does the government influence the affairs in the media? Where do they start? Where do they stop? And certainly I think what from the incidents that we have seen in the past few weeks that have rocked Rwanda Media Commission, certainly the challenges still remain. What we need is to strike that balance and know where does the government influence stop and where does the media, stop also in terms of, because to be honest, there are other things that can come in and affect the media as a profession in terms of how we practice. If the government completely leaves us to operate in, to operate in that independent manner that we are talking about. But as we go forward, for us as journalists now, what we are looking at is how are we going to strike that balance? How will we trust the government? How will the government trust journalists to run their own affairs? If we can strike that balance. I'm saying we are young in this whole process. We are still young. We are just starting. Some countries have been down this road 100 years now, but it still has challenges in countries like UK. I think only Scandinavian countries have been able to really have this.
So we are still in that pace of trying to understand each other. That is the government and the media. How far can we let each other loose in terms of doing what they're doing? But you'll tell me later on in the program, what are those things that you feel the media can do wrong if the government says 100%, or if the state, in the words of Prince, says, go ahead, manage yourself. So you'll tell me that later on in the program. But let me bring in Ladislas, who is a communication expert. You have been public on your Twitter handle, when it comes to this whole discussion that has been going on the fate of the media press freedom in Rwanda, and of course the resignation of the former chairman of the commission. Now, what level do you think the media here in Rwanda is at to be able to be let 100% free, and is that even possible?
100%.
For me and for us, because I'm coming from the Ministry of Local Government, which is also responsible for information. For us, our main focus is to enforce the laws. We are not lawmakers, but as long as the law is published, we are part of the executive. The supreme law is the Constitution. Article 34 of the Constitution is clear. Freedom of expression and freedom of the press is recognized, and it is guaranteed by the state. That is one. That is the starting point. Second, we have the law governing the press media in Rwanda, which law stipulates clearly that there is part of media which is regulated by media self-regulation, media self-regulatory body, but that is the Article 4. The second paragraph of that law, of that article, says the statutory regulator also regulates audio, audiovisual, and internet. Therefore, for us as government, we have no problem in ensuring media self-regulation as long as laws are implemented as they are.
So in your interpretation from the legal part which you're bringing on the table today, what do you, or what should we understand by the term self-regulation? Because most people have probably misunderstood this particular word. That when he says self-regulation, is you do your business, manage yourselves, have your own way. Is this what it means?
But I'm watching you.
But I'm watching you, Kagire said.
The law is clear, the responsibilities are well defined all over the world. The state is responsible of public order all over the world. The state makes laws. The state has also the executive power, which has the mandate to implement the laws. But also the state has the judiciary. That means for me and for my department as the Minister of Local Government, we are there to implement the laws. The government has the mandate to define and to create a conducive environment for the media, and that is a policy. The government is committed to media freedom, media capacity, and we are investing a lot in ensuring media self-regulation. When these laws were being enacted, that was in 2013, the spirit was the government until now shall be regulating broadcasting and internet, that is radio, television, and internet. And the print media shall regulate itself through an independent mechanism. That is why for us, and that is what is said by the law does not talk of Rwanda Media Commission. It talks of media self-regulatory body. That means journalists themselves, they shall sit, they shall gather, and they shall define that mechanism, that framework, how it shall operate. And actually, media self-regulation is not governed by the government, but it is the initiative of the government. It has the full support for the government because it is the outcome of the government policy. It is a public will. That is the government policy. Media, as long as we are building the capacity, as long as we are rebuilding the society, media also is being built progressively. Now, the system is in that way that the print media is self-regulated.
But the other ones? I have to disagree a little bit for good continuation. My disagreement is about print and
the other electronic media.
I don't disagree that the government should be regulating the other electronic. Now, in well-developed, regimes and countries, government is there because of something very important called frequency. It has to be there. In Rwanda, well, it's not the case. But it is well defined when you go back to the law, and my friend will go back to the law. There is a law stipulating the daily management and the daily regulation of the media is done by a self-regulatory body. And it does not say regulate the print. Now, the issue is there are like two parties which to me should agree on from the outset. The government and the journalists. They all work for one common interest, which is public interest. Now, we should agree on how, and government should support. It must even.
Do you feel it? Do you feel you're getting that support?
Let me tell you
as you continue with your answer. Are you getting it?
We get the support.
But from your tone of voice, you seem to be very...
No. We got the support.
Like it's not the case.
We got the support from the law. The will of the government is expressed through the law.
But the implementation
what I want the government to do now is accompanying.
Which they are not doing in your opinion.
With trust.
Are they not doing that?
With trust. And we seem to agree on many things.
Yes, but disagreeing on this one.
I disagreed completely with when he brought the term print.
Yes.
It might be confusing.
Do you want to defend yourself?
It is our not learned friend. Of defending myself, but interpretation does not supersede the law as it is written. The law says the daily functioning of media and the conduct of journalists shall be regulated by the media self-regulatory body.
Exactly.
And what is wrong with
that?
Wait.
However, the National Utilities Statutory Regulator shall also carry out the regulation of audio, audiovisual, media, and internet. So here, we should agree. It is not the talk of frequencies, as my friend is saying. We should read the law as it is, and as time was maybe in the future also the government shall relinquish the regulation of the audio or the
term
broadcasting.
The term
but
print
the
is
issue here is
confusing.
the print, what he says.
What I'm saying,
is there a secret hand from the background
this is what I'm saying.
when it comes to that particular
This
term?
is
or
what I'm saying. This law was initiated by the government. When you are writing the law, you have what you call the spirit of the law.
Yes.
That is why the law did not say Rwanda Media Commission.
So
but the law said media self-regulatory body.
And which is
it has
RMC,
to have a
no?
name.
Which
No,
is
it has
Rwanda
to
Media
have a
Commission,
name.
no?
You say,
Yes.
that is what we are saying.
Yes.
We agree it should have a name. But since the self-regulatory body was conceived as a mechanism within the media practitioners themselves,
Yes.
that is why the law did not define how that body should be named.
It left that idea to
Yes,
us.
To
yes.
us.
So do you agree
That
that,
is-
we
that is
established
why
the body
that-
and put it in place and named it Rwanda Media Commission?
I don't say the
you agree?
media did not establish that that mechanism or that body, as long as the practitioners themselves say we have this body.
And we
Yes.
called it this.
We
Do you-
call
do you
it.
So what's
recognize-
wrong with
What's wrong with the name?
With the name? Why is the name not
this
there?
is-
Does it mean?
No, what I'm
wait,
saying-
gentlemen. Does this mean that the Rwanda Media Commission, if it presents itself with that name, does it mean it is illegally existing?
No, what I'm saying is that we come back to the law, we see what the law means and what the law says. The law says media self-regulatory body, and that law was enacted by the government. That law was not enacted by journalists. And coming back to your question from the beginning, self-regulation is not under threat at all. Because basically, and according to the Constitution, freedom of media, freedom of expression is recognized and it is guaranteed by the state.
But
And
Kagere
that
seems
same
to
state-
disagree with that.
I-
It
Unless
feels
it
like
disagrees with the
there are two
Constitution,
things.
Yes,
but
yes,
the
there are
two
Constitution says the freedom of the press and freedom of media, freedom
a
of
law, yes.
expression
In a law,
is
yes.
recognized.
but on the ground,
and
Kagere
that
feels
is
that
guaranteed
is-
by
but
the
let's
state.
bring him
let's
in.
make-
Let's
let's
bring
make a
in
few
the
things very
SG here.
clear.
Yes.
The law, yes, the law is there. The law can be interpreted to mean different things sometimes.
Yes.
But one thing at least we can all agree on is that the law set out the standards upon which journalists will establish a body
That will self-regulate the media.
self-regulate the media. And
Yes.
we did that. The Rwanda Media Commission was established. As a matter of fact, it entered a memorandum of understanding with Rura on how they will go about their duties. There's no debate about that. But I remember at one time when this issue of BBC came up, some officials actually were keen on saying, but what is Rwanda Media Commission? Who is Rwanda Media Commission? Who brought the... So they wanted in a way to turn around and say, this body, we actually don't recognize it, which showed me that certainly we still have a long way to go in terms of, building that trust. Media self-regulation works on trust between the government and the jurated who are the journalists. If that trust doesn't exist, probably there's still an issue that needs to be addressed.
Wait, I'll bring in Prince as you clear up on that particular point, especially on this issue of the BBC and the trust issue, because some people who have been closely monitoring this whole issue have been saying that when this issue of the BBC came up, there seemed to be a position that the Rwanda Media Commission had taken. And that was through the statements that were being made by the then chairman, Fred Muvunyi, which seemed to be contradicting what the government had decided to do, and that was to ban the local BBC broadcasts here, which according to the then chairperson who was speaking on behalf of the RMC was kind of wrong. They felt that that was not a proper way of doing things. So was this the main issue? Is this the area where we are all seeing that the government seems to be feeling like this Rwanda Media Commission is not playing the game with us, is not in agreement with what we agree on?
No.
Is that the issue?
No.
Yes.
First, people need to have a clear information about the BBC. Or sometimes the chairman of the time could declare things that the board itself does not own.
Is that one of the statements that he made
wait a bit.
that was not part of the board?
We need to be very clear on that. BBC is not an indicator that the government threatens RMC.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, that's one. Some people tend to create even things. Some people told me, but Prince, do you work well with Rura? I said, yes, as long as they are our partners and as long as we need each other to partner together. The thing is, some people should not forget that BBC was an unexpected issue. Nobody was prepared for BBC and what happened. You see, now when something surprises you, it's like the wind blowing in a forest, and then there is a reaction. So what I have to say, and people should understand that the BBC issue went beyond our limits, the limits of RMC. It's written clearly in the law that my friend read, who gave the frequency to BBC? It's the government. Yes. That's one. Second, who should, care about the public order? And I'm trying to be honest. That's the government. What is the role of RMC in this issue? The role of RMC in this issue is to look at the content with the spirit of the law. But when it comes to administration of things, contracts between government and BBC, I think the role of RMC should be as small as it could have been. So what you're saying in a nutshell is, yes, the then chairman at that time, Fred Muvunyi, whatever statements he was making at that time were his personal views? They were not RMC's view? Part of it. People could meet like in a meeting.
I remember you attended that press conference. How would you let that happen?
Yes, and you don't say it.
And you say, please, this is not our
press conference. No,
my colleague, maybe
in the press conference I wasn't be there. And to be honest, things seem to be, it is like everything hinges on the BBC issues. But BBC is one issue among many others. So we shouldn't be bound and be captive of the BBC issue, which now is a matter of, it belongs to ages to me. Yes.
Listen, this BBC, the suspension of BBC was taken by the government. That is the government that suspended the BBC on air. And you have to see why, and you have to see within which limits the government did that. Yes. One, and my friend here and the other viewers needed to understand this. One, the agreement between the BBC and the government of Rwanda was signed between BBC Trust and the government of Rwanda, represented by the government.
By Rura.
Listen, the agreement between BBC and the government was signed between the government of Rwanda, represented by the Minister of Information, and the head of BBC World Service, East and Middle East. He was delegated by the BBC Trust Board.
So at that time, no RMC?
No RMC. That is one. Second, among those people who prepared this documentary and who aired that documentary, there is no one, no journalist, no Rwandan journalist, and no journalist based in Rwanda. That is the element of competence, territorial competence. That is second. Three, BBC as a trust, as a corporation, has different departments. Rwanda did not sign agreement with BBC to broadcast only in English or in French or in Swahili or in Kinyarwanda, whatever. So that means if it is BBC, anything related to BBC... it is a BBC as a whole, and the government had the right to take what I could call a retaliation, to take action against any of the services of BBC. It could be in Kinyarwanda, it could be against the BBC French, it could be against the BBC English, or it could be against the BBC as a whole. Yes. That is the right of Rwanda. When BBC sought for frequencies in Rwanda, no one else was consulted unless the government.
So meaning RMC should not come in and say that we were supposed to have done this because we are the ones who are self-regulating ourselves. Is that what you mean?
As Bahati says.
We should see this. among those people who developed and who had this documentary, there is no Rwandan, and there is no one based on the Rwandan territory. That is one. Second, the government, by taking that action, it is a contract management issue. That means BBC and the government of Rwanda set together. They agreed on the principles. They did not consult anyone else. They agreed, BBC shall do this, and the government shall do this. If we don't respect this contract can be terminated. So by either party. So by the government, by terminating or by suspending BBC, whichever the program, the government acted within the confines of
the law. So no apologies at all?
No apologies at all.
Super. I think so when we come back, we're going to take a very short break. Hold that thought, Edmund. And when we come back, I'll also be getting at least a response from Prince. If you had the power to handle this BBC whole issue as RMC, how different would you have handled it? When you come back, just hold that thought when we return after this very short particular break that we're taking right now. Stay with us. This is Debate 4-on-1. We're back in a moment. And welcome back. You're watching Debate 4-on-1. Get in touch with us. All you need to do, if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Debate 4-on-1, and the address is on your screen right now to share your views. Remember, my name as always is Eugene Nangwe. My guest in studio today is none other than Ladislas, who is a communication analyst and is working with the Ministry of Local Government. We also have Edmund Kajire, the Secretary General of the Rwanda Association of Journalists, and you also with the East African. Yes. And we have Prince Bahati, who is representing the Rwanda Media Commission. Our topic today is the fate of the self-regulatory body in Rwanda. Is self-regulation under threat? And when we went for the break, you two, Kagire and Prince, were banning to answer something that we're talking about, the issue of the handling of the BBC scenario vis-a-vis the self-regulation of media. Do you think we understood things wrongly when it came to management of media matters by RMC? If you had the power as RMC to handle this issue, how differently would you have handled it from what the government did? The way he said no apologies at all.
First, we need to agree, and that is a universal truth, that nobody handles issues the way government can handle issues. You see, so if it were left to me to handle the issue of BBC, I would have handled them as an individual or as a member of Rwanda Media Commission. Maybe I wouldn't have looked at the way the government looks at it, because the government is equipped enough to see what might be threatened, even their national security. Number two, remember the issue of BBC became more political than it could have been more professional. Of course, there were professional mistakes, but also political issues touching the ideology of genocide, which ideology of genocide from the outset of Rwanda construction and rebuilding after the genocide, the issue of genocide ideology is very sensitive. You look at that one. And so if anybody came to us at the Rwanda Media Commission, we would have dealt with the content and come up with our conclusion, which I don't have now because we didn't do that.
So you think you were sidestepped by the government?
No, that's not what I say. I said initially that all over the world, even you, Eugene, you cannot handle things the way government handles things. Government has one and more thousands of ways to deal with things, right? And according to Ladislas, even what he said, I think government used the last energy, right, to tackle and to tie this issue.
You said earlier on, if it was me, I would have handled them personally.
No.
Box them.
I cannot even handle it personally.
That you meant.
The issue is I represent Rwanda Media Commission, right? And we would have looked at the content, okay, which is our mandate, and we didn't do that. But I'm not saying that the government was wrong. That one should, I have to be called by
Kakire, do you agree with him?
I cannot say that the government was wrong.
Do you feel what he's saying is proper? As a person representing the Media Commission, when it comes to the issue of content and management of self-regulation as it is, he says if the Rwanda Media Commission would have handled the content, would have looked at the content, which they did not do. Do you feel the government should have at least given the Rwanda Media Commission to do it?
To look at the content, then make some recommendations.
But he says it wasn't wrong.
And we made them, and after everything had gone, government brought a commission, you see? That means, all in all, they needed some people to look at that content. You see, but because of the emergency, I think it was urgent for government to take action. And later, they set up a commission. You remember that commission? Which means, this is like a communication, a crisis communication.
The last one,
where you don't have step
let's
one
have the last
necessarily be step
yes,
one.
on this issue.
My point on this.
Yes, make it, and then Ladislas will make a point, then we put aside BBC, we move back to some other issues.
What we're saying is that this issue could have been handled differently. I think there was an issue of emotions and overreacting.
Who was overreacting? Who was showing emotions?
Probably both RMC and government.
So government was showing emotions and RMC was showing emotions.
Could have been handled in a way that would have not led to the explosion that we saw people exchanging statements. And
I think
what he was saying is that RMC could have been given a day or two to look at the content, then make some recommendations.
Was it competent enough? Was it competent enough to do it?
I think RMC never challenged the government on the issues of frequency and contracts and all that. All they said is, let's assess this content a little bit, then make some recommendations to Rura. That's what they do in other cases. If Rwanda Paparazzi, a local website, makes some errors, they make recommendations to Rura, and Rura shuts down the website.
So you feel, what Kagire is saying here is that at least the RMC should have been given a chance.
A little bit. He said they might.
Why do you think they were not given a chance to do it?
We should understand the powers and the responsibilities. I said it earlier. When the government signed the agreement with the BBC, there was no other stakeholder other than the government bodies. That is one.
So legally they not transferred
they had no authority over it.
I say, when the government signed the agreement with the BBC, there was no third party apart from the government. That is one. Second, the contract between the BBC and the government of Rwanda stipulated clearly the powers, the rights, and the responsibilities of either party. Three, we should look at things with due consideration. Genocide denial is not a matter of negotiation. Genocide denial is not a matter of consultation. It is a matter of survival. When the country is under attack by whichever element, by whichever force, the country has the responsibility to protect itself. And the government has the responsibility to protect all Rwandans from any form of genocide ideology, from any form of divisionism, no matter the way the government deals with that situation. And by this, the government, when the government suspended the BBC, not only the matter was about genocide denial, But also the element at hand, at stake, was that BBC had broken the contract it had signed with the government of Rwanda.
So there should be no other negotiation on this issue.
Negotiation.
Put the final nail on the coffin and we finish.
Negotiations could follow, or they could not follow. The most important is that the government did what it was.
You seem impressed by what he's saying.
That's what I said earlier.
Yes.
That we need to be very keen to know in which circumstances did the BBC issue appear. Nobody was prepared.
So let's put it this way. Yes.
When you are not prepared for something, I think for the next issues which might arise, we need to get prepared.
So you haven't been prepared yet? Meaning there's no preparation?
There were no preparation.
No. Today as we speak, based on the lessons learned from the BBC incident, what has been done to prepare ourselves for such a situation?
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say that we don't disagree with my friend. The thing is, he should put water into his wine as he talks about the power of the government.
The law is flexible, yes,
because later they put or they established a commission, and we are saying no matter how the government solved the issue, but were we prepared enough, we would have seen the commission before even anything happens.
Right. Let's finalize that issue. I want us to jump onto another element. But let's not make it a BBC debate. We're not debating BBC.
Of course.
We're debating self-regulation.
Exactly.
You have said it clearly that no apologies for whatever happened. You have also mentioned that at least
the government was not wrong.
Was not wrong for what they said. But Kagire says there should have been a bit of trust. Let RMC also, yes, do a few things. So when we say, or when anybody mentions anywhere on whatever platform that RMC is under threat because the government wants to control it, and that is why we had the former chairman resign mysteriously and he has even left the country. What comes to our mind when we see such statements? Do you agree with this?
Number one, it's because people are not informed. And as I said earlier, we need support from the government. We need trust. We need government should accompany us on this journey that we have already started.
Why is the government not doing that?
You know, not by involving itself. But I haven't answered the question.
Yes.
The question is, does resignation of a chairman mark, you see, or does it tell everyone that, you know, here is a threat? The answer is no. Now, I want to inform, if you allow me at least to inform those who are watching us and the viewers. I have to say that the chairman is not equal to the board. The chairman is the commissioner first, before being even a chairman.
I disagree with
I'm here, but I'm not Rwanda Media Commission. I'm representing a board of people. When we have to take an action, we meet. We agree on things. Now, we cannot say that their relationships, our relations with the government, the road was well paved. As a matter of fact, the chairman resigned. But when they asked him, why did you resign? Nothing. He hasn't given any comment.
But you've seen...
Actually, prior to his resignation, which resignation we were not expecting at Rwanda Media Commission, we met. And if people want to be informed, the chairman was being, you know, proud and roof to some government institution. That one I have testimonies. He himself has the SMS issue, because I have to mention this. One time the Minister of Government wants to meet us. He tells the chairman through his agents that he wants to meet the board, and the chairman writes a message. He doesn't even answer verbally, but he says, who are you to meet? Who are you to come to Rwanda Media Commission?
So is it true?
And then we
met. Is it true? I don't understand.
No insult. I know you are going to say that he insulted.
Yes, exactly, because we have been told, we have seen that he insulted, and he even wrote an apology letter as a commission.
Because this leads to his resignation, maybe. Yes. And then prior to his resignation, we met as the board. We said, Mr. Chairman, if this is what you wrote, we think it is not appropriate. And so we want to help you to apologize for this.
help him.
So you are helping him to apologize. Nobody asked him to apologize.
We wanted to be both responsible and accountable without throwing our chairman anywhere, because we thought, though he might have been wrong, but he was representing us, you see? And so we wanted to share responsibilities. That's why we didn't want him to apologize alone.
And for you, you've gone public.
The next morning,
he will come in.
We all learned through an email, chairman resigned. That's it.
So Ladislas, you have been public on Twitter, especially on this issue of the former chairman. You will come in as he answers this one. Because the issue is, he also has an issue with the articles that have been coming out of the media house where you work at, the East African. Some articles have been saying that what's next, for example, that article, which in there, he has asked personally on his Twitter account, which officials do you mean are trying to bring their hand into the RMC? So do you feel that the RMC is under threat from its own self and not the government?
I cannot agree with that. Because, as I said earlier, the self-regulation was a policy by the government. And it was initiated by the government.
That we know.
That is one. Second, when journalists themselves established the constitution governing RMC, when they established the institution, the body, self-regulatory body, the government designated Rwanda Governance Board to be there as the caretaker for Rwanda Media Commission, as this infant stage, let's say that. That is why the government is supporting financially Rwanda Media Commission. No one shall disagree with that.
To a low extent.
But the government is doing that. Even development partners deal normally with the government. That is why we have approached the UNDP. We agreed that UNDP shall keep supporting Rwanda Media Commission through Rwanda Governance Board, because the Rwanda Governance Board was appointed by the government to be there as the caretaker.
There are people who will argue, Ladislas, before you go, hold that thought. The people who will argue and say, you cannot bite a finger that feeds you. And if you support RMC financially like that, how are you able to independently talk to the government and tell them, listen here, you're going wrong, yet you expect something from them?
We need a gentleman agreement. The fact that...
just that part.
It is in the obligations of the government to support such institutions.
Exactly.
It's not through forgiveness or pity.
So
what I'm saying here, that the people in the government should be ready to have a gentleman agreement that the money I give, I'm supporting the public interest.
But I'm not fully...
Do you feel that? Yeah. Do you feel there are strings attached?
No, I had not yet
just
finished.
On the financing part only, and then you continue.
I had not
Let's
yet
finish on that financing issue.
No, before we go back, I wanted to react.
No. Let's just talk on the financial issue. Do you feel that this financing from government might be making the RMC compromise on certain issues?
Let me make myself clear on the issues Bahati raised. Saying that Muvunyi resigned and then what...
We were not expecting him to resign. That's what
let's all agree. Let's not pretend that the resignation of Muvunyi did not affect media self-regulation and the media fraternity as a whole. He was elected by journalists. I'm sorry we are dragging ourselves back in the past. We should be looking at what next.
Which is what I'm trying to do. You're taking us back there.
I talked to journalists. I talked to a number of them. They were very upset by the resignation. It affected the trust they had in RMC as their body, especially when we got to know that some board members did apologize, even without us knowing what exactly they are apologizing for.
Who signed
it? He signed because people did apologize. But for what? We didn't get the details of why and what.
Yes, I think Mr. Eugene, let me clarify this.
It's a matter of people being informed.
Let's have a clarification from the institution where we had the issues.
Before even intervene, the problem with Muvunyi and the problem journalists have, Muvunyi can make a good journalist. But when it comes to chairing and leading, he needed experience, which we had already started providing him.
Let's not gossip about him because he's not here to defend himself. Let's hear from him for clarification on this
For
issue.
the matter of this RMC chair who resigned, You said it well. It should not be a matter of this debate, but it is very important for the public to know. The commissioner member of RMC gave the clarification that were required, but as long as people intend to say he resigned because of the pressure from the government, it should be stated clearly that there was no pressure at all from the government.
There are some SMSs, some messages that he's posting out there, putting in public,
Yes,
that there are some government officials that were talking behind to pull him out of there. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that?
That is good.
Yes.
He did not disclose who are those officials.
No, but he has some SMSs.
Yes.
While agreeing with you,
Th-
I need people from the government,
Yes.
even representatives, should not open a debate, you know, insulting or you know. I think that
we should understand this. Putting out those SMSs without saying this is coming from this. You can forge SMS as you want. We are used to forge the documents.
No, actually,
why
it
not to
says he
forge
has not released the
SMSs?
certain-
That is one. Second, we should also understand that this person, when they came to meet the Minister of Local Government, it was not the initiative from the Minister of Local Government. Muvunyi, as the chairman of the Rwanda Media Commission, wrote officially to the minister seeking appointment with the minister for introduction. Later on, before the minister responded, Muvunyi sent SMSs to the minister. He asked him, the minister, I beg from you to disband RGB or to change its mandate. That is what he said to the minister. Then the minister directed the CEO of Rwanda Governance Board to meet the board of RIMC and to come to sort out all the pending problems which might be there. When the board, the RGB, when they called the guy, the CEO, the former chairman of RIMC, he told them openly and he sent them SMSs, I cannot meet you because you are nothing before me. That is why later on, Muvunyi went to apologize before Rwanda Governance Board.
With the help of Bahati and the team.
No, I don't know how he did it, but
That's
what
Bahati.
I know,
Bahati
what
said
I
that.
know, what I know. Listen, wait.
Mature people,
Yeah.
we had
Wait.
realized that we see smoke. There might be fire.
Yes. Then-
So we wanted to help him solve
Okay.
the issue.
After Rwanda Governance Board, that is when the minister granted the audience to the board of RIMC. They came at the ministry for introduction. We met with them. We discussed about the functioning of the institution, and they came up with those abusing SMSs that Muvunyi sent to the CEO of RGB and to the Minister of Local Government.
The minister displayed.
The minister displayed the messages. And even Muvunyi did not want to acknowledge it as a mistake. He said, unless you disband RGB, the ministry is useless.
But Muvunyi also
No,
says...
wait,
Let's talk about Muvunyi.
Right.
It's
Wait.
not about
I
that.
think-
The issue here is
Yes.
you are going to clarify. You have
Yes.
done that.
I'm clarifying
I
this.
think by now it's already clear. From
Now
also
it is
what we've
clear.
been seeing and
That
reading.
is why later on,
Yes.
as the commissioner said, the board recognized that the chairman had went far away. And what I know is that the ministry received the apology letter from Rwanda Media Commission, which was signed by the chairman.
So
And
for
that
you,
is-
it's not a matter of looking who really wrote the letter. You received the letter and that's
for
it.
me,
Did he sign it
and
under duress?
for my institution, as we received the letter, the case has been closed. We have
And
no
I think
problem
that's
at all
it.
with RIMC.
We can continue with this discussion of Muvunyi, but that's not the main thing for me. What I want to know right now is, as we near the close of the debate today, the issue of ownership
Yes.
of this self-regulatory process by the media itself. Do you feel that that's a threat already on this? Because not so many journalists
I don't-
are really even
I do
having
not
cards
want to use
from
the
RMC.
term threat. Maybe it's because I have a limited knowledge about threat. But as I know threat, I have to agree that there are issues and problems. One, I like that Gakire supports us. He's not us, but the board. And I'm sure from what you're saying, out of his word, Kagire supports RIMC. But I know that some journalists do not feel the ownership. As a matter of fact, we are in the studio. How many journalists from RBA that own Rwanda Media Commission's card? Because if we want to move forward, we need to own it once, and then we continue. Number two, government should at least give a trust. I don't know how to define it. Are these people going to work for the good of the government? Yes, that's where we are going. And how can that be done? I have been always begging that we meet as actors in this sector, RURA, RGB, Minalok, and RIMC, so that out of our meeting, we know to define. Of course, we have MOUs, but MOUs alone are not enough if we haven't set together and pave a road for regulation, because government has a lot of advantages and benefits from self-regulation, and I think better than in statutory regulation. As a matter of fact, 70 complaints, cases have now been closed. In next week, we will be receiving an award. My colleagues now are in Geneva receiving an award of Rwanda Media Commission as the best self-regulator in this generation.
Yet your own people, your own journalists in your own country don't want to be part of it.
I think journalists should join.
Like that. We are in, by the way.
I'm calling
but not so many, right?
Yeah.
From the way
I'll tell you
has a big number of journalists in this country. The New Times. I want them to know that having a card, a press card from RIMC,
maybe we need to create that awareness,
makes it strong. Yes,
awareness. I'll take that as your parting word, because we are only remaining with 1 minute. So I want us to share those 1 minute very quickly, Kagire.
There are two things, goodwill and trust. Goodwill comes from the government. Goodwill, yes, there is. There is goodwill from the top leadership. Perhaps I would say that there are some few officials who want to wield their power over the process of self-regulation, but yes, goodwill is there. There's no doubt about that. Trust between the government and the journalists, it is there, but it has a few questions. You see, I was reading something before I came here. Self-regulation works in such a way, like when a father lets out a son to play, and that father locks the gate and keeps around watching over the child, how the child is playing. It becomes a bit tricky compared to this father who will trust the son and open the gate and tell the son, go out there and play, and trust the son to bring back himself. So in a realistic situation, what are you trying to say? The gate is still a little bit locked, and Big Brother is still watching over us. And you want the gate to be opened, you go out and play. It is how it starts everywhere. Okay. I was reading cases of Finland and Norway and Denmark. This is how it starts. The government will trust you and say, okay, go out and regulate yourselves. And at some point they'll say, yeah, they can do it, and then sit back and watch us regulate ourselves. Okay. But at the moment, what I'm saying is that the government, should trust us and open the gate a little bit and allow us to go out there. And if there is any issue, like a father who trusts his son to return home, come and look for us and say, no, I think this one, you're doing it wrong. That is really the point. The next elections are going to be very crucial, how they are going to happen. I think we should be forward-looking how the next election is going to be conducted, and the board, the independence of the board. Some journalists are saying people who are non-journalists should go out. For me, that's not an issue. But some are saying, how should a non-journalist be part of the board that is running affairs of journalists? Because we don't say journalist. Bahati, you're done. I think time is over. That's it for me. The next election. Let me bring in listeners to finish off, especially on this issue of election, which some people are saying the government wants to put someone who they can control. That is what let's finish with you. 60 seconds. 60 seconds. That is mere and sheer speculation. As I said, RIMC self-regulation is the government policy, and the government has delegated its responsibility to journalists themselves. But that does not mean that the government should relinquish its responsibility to protect the public or the country. Not in elections. That means the elections shall be free. But I would say
As he said, when the father lets the son going, but he keeps watching, that is the responsibility for the government. There are some Rwandans, and many of them who are not part of journalists, who are not members of RIMC, but who may be, who are somehow consumers or victims or somehow stakeholders to RIMC. Those people need to be protected by the government.
And that is what you're doing?
That is what we are doing. RIMC is independent. We support it by all means that the government can provide. That is the government that enacted the laws establishing RIMC. That is the will of the government, and we keep doing it. RIMC has the full support from the government, but the public should also be protected either by RIMC members themselves or by the government according to the law.
That's it. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on Debate 411.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. There you have it.
It's a pleasure
the debate
debating
ends
with you.
like that, and we'll still keep debating. The conversations continue on Twitter and other social media platforms. Use the hashtag Debate411, and let's meet again for even more interesting topics right here on Debate 411. On behalf of my guests and the production crew right here, I'm Eugene Anangwe, signing off.